The wind howled, rain lashed down. A lone figure, cloaked and hooded, trudged through the mud. He clutched a leather-bound book. Its pages contained a name, whispered only in hushed tones: Nicobobinas. The traveller shivered, pulling his cloak tighter. He was searching for something, or perhaps someone, but the closer he got, the heavier his heart felt. Fear, primal and instinctive, coiled in his gut. He had been warned. Nicobobinas. A forgotten village, nestled deep within a valley, hidden from the world. Shrouded in perpetual mist, it was a place untouched by time, where the past lingered like a ghost. Ancient stone houses lined a cobbled street, their windows dark and empty, whispering tales of a bygone era. Silence hung heavy in the air, broken only by the mournful creaking of a rusty swing set, a haunting reminder of laughter long gone. The traveller stood at the entrance, hesitant, feeling the weight of the village's history pressing down on him. An unsettling feeling washed over him. The village was deserted, yet it felt as if unseen eyes were watching. There was no sign of life, no movement, no sound. Not even the chirping of crickets disturbed the eerie stillness of the night. It was as if the village itself was holding its breath, waiting for something or someone to break the spell. The traveller approached an old, weathered door, its intricate carvings telling stories of a time when the village thrived. His hand hovered over the handle, hesitant, as if crossing the threshold would awaken the spirits of the past. Inside, the house was a time capsule, dust-covered furniture and forgotten trinkets frozen in time. The traveller moved cautiously, each step echoing through the empty rooms, each creak of the floorboards a reminder of the lives once lived here. A faded family portrait hung on the wall, the faces staring back with eyes that seemed to follow his every move. He looked out of the window, the fog still thick outside, obscuring the world beyond, trapping him in this forgotten place. With a heavy heart, the traveller left the house, stepping back into the mist, the village of Nicobobinas fading into the background, its secrets remaining untold. He stepped onto the cobbled street. The stones were slick with moss, each step treacherous. The traveller walked cautiously, his senses on high alert. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. He stopped in front of a house. Its wooden door hung open, creaking ominously in the wind. He peered inside, his breath catching in his throat. On the floor, a child's doll lay discarded. Its porcelain face was cracked, a single glass eye staring accusingly. This place was not right. The traveller pulled out the leather-bound book. Its pages contained stories passed down through generations, whispers of disappearances, unexplained events. The villagers called it a curse, a malevolent entity that haunted Nicobobinas. He flipped through the brittle pages, his heart pounding. Each story spoke of a creature, shapeless and ancient, a being that fed on fear, and it was drawn to places of sorrow, places touched by despair. The traveller swallowed hard. He was in the heart of it. Section 5. The Ritualistic Chamber. He found it in the basement of a house, hidden behind a wall of crumbling stone, a small circular chamber. A single flickering candle illuminated strange symbols etched into the floor. In the center, a stone altar stained with a dark, viscous substance. The traveller recognized the symbols from the book. They were ancient runes used to summon something evil. He could feel the air grow thick, heavy with unseen menace. The stories were true. Section 6. The Legend of Nicobobinas. The legend spoke of an entity, born of darkness and despair. It resided in a mirror, a conduit between worlds. The entity craved life, feeding on the energy of the living. To appease it, the villagers of Nicobobinas made a pact, an offering in exchange for their continued existence. The traveller shuddered. The book did not mention what kind of offering, but the stained altar and the deserted village painted a grim picture. He had to leave now. Section 7. The Offering. He turned to go, but it was too late. The air shimmered behind him, casting an otherworldly glow that seemed to pulse with a life of its own. The hallway, once merely eerie, now felt alive, as if it were breathing, watching. A figure materialized in the doorway, small, frail, and shrouded in shadows. It was a child, but there was something deeply unsettling about its presence. The darkness seemed to cling to it, as if the shadows were a part of its very being. In its hand, it clutched a doll. The same doll he had seen earlier, lying abandoned in the corner of the room. The doll's cracked face and lifeless eyes seemed to mock him, a silent witness to the horrors that had unfolded here. The traveler felt a chill run down his spine. This was the offering. The realization hit him like a physical blow. The child was not just a victim, it was a sacrifice, an innocent life given to appease the malevolent entity that haunted this place, an innocent sacrifice to appease the entity. He took a step back, his heart pounding in his chest. The room seemed to close in around him, the walls pressing in as if trying to trap him. He knew he had to act quickly. He had to get the child out of here. He had to escape. The urgency of the situation spurred him into action. He reached out, grabbing the child's hand, and together they ran. The hallway stretched out before them, a seemingly endless tunnel of darkness and fear. Every step felt like a battle against the malevolent forces that sought to keep them there. But he couldn't give up. He wouldn't. For the child's sake, and for his own, he had to find a way out. Section 8. Escape. He lunged for the child, but his hands passed through empty air. The figure shimmered, fading into the darkness. He spun around, searching desperately for the child, for a way out. But the room seemed to twist and contort around him. The air grew colder, the shadows deeper. He stumbled back, his hand brushing against something cold and smooth. The mirror. He had forgotten about the mirror. It pulsed with an eerie light, drawing him in. He was trapped. Section 9. The haunting truth. He stared into the mirror, his reflection staring back at him. The room was dimly lit, shadows dancing on the walls, creating an eerie atmosphere. The silence was deafening, broken only by the sound of his own breathing. But something was wrong. His reflection began to distort, to morph. The once familiar face twisted and turned, becoming something unrecognizable. It was as if the mirror had a life of its own, warping reality. The face in the mirror was no longer his own. It was the child's. A young, innocent face that seemed out of place in the dark, foreboding room. The child's eyes were wide, filled with a mix of curiosity and malice. The child smiled, a chilling, empty smile. It was a smile that sent shivers down his spine, a smile that spoke of secrets and untold horrors. The room seemed to grow colder, the air thick with an unseen presence. And then it reached out from the mirror, its icy fingers closing around his throat. The touch was cold, like death itself, sending a jolt of fear through his body. He tried to pull away, but the grip was unrelenting. The traveler gasped, struggling for air. His heart raced, pounding in his chest like a drum. Panic set in as he clawed at the invisible hand, desperate to break free. He could feel his life force draining, sucked into the mirror. His strength waned, his vision blurred. The room around him seemed to fade, replaced by an overwhelming darkness. The last thing he saw was his own terrified face, replaced by the child's haunting reflection. The child's eyes seemed to bore into his soul, a final, mocking farewell, trapped forever in the mirror. His existence now confined to the cold, reflective surface, a prisoner of the child's malevolent spirit, the newest offering of nicobobinas, a tale of terror and the supernatural, where reality and nightmare intertwine. Beware, for the mirror holds more than just reflections.